Hey, good morning, everyone.
How welcoming this is the Bears are now looking back at Chicago and unrelated.
Always stated from the very beginning that any type of development in the city of Chicago has to have a public benefit to it. My administration has been in ongoing conversations with the Bears. Make no mistake about it, I made it very clear from the very beginning, not just public use, but I want the Bears to stay in the city of Chicago. And our conversations, the subsequent ones that will follow, will continue to lead towards that direction. A public benefit, public use for the people of Chicago. Obviously, the storied history of the Chicago Bears in the city of Chicago is one that is second to none. The city of Chicago, we always win, particularly when we work together. And so that's what my commitment is. Yeah, so as you may know, if you don't know, this is a growing national crisis. There's been an uptick around the country. And the first case that we experienced in Chicago was on the northwest side of Chicago. And so our public health department, we're on the ground, particularly at the various shelters to make sure that we are getting as many people vaccinated as possible and as quickly as possible. The vast majority of Chicagoans are vaccinated. That's a good thing, but there's still a number of Chicagoans who have not received the vaccine for measles. I'm encouraging every single Chicagoan who either does not know their status or has not gotten the vaccine for measles that they should do that. Our immunity is better equipped and prepared to respond to this if we're all vaccinated. I'm wonderful, thank you. Well, as I said, the conversations have been very positive. I said from the very beginning that we have to have a public benefit, a public use. The only time that this facility historically has been available is when the Bears are in town. We need to make sure that we have a 365 operation. That is the vision that I have for the city of Chicago, and I expressed that. There's some shared values there. Now, as far as who had the upper hand and who didn't, well, we'll just let the pundits debate that. Okay.
Do you like what you have heard from the Bears enough to get behind it at this stage?
Well, what I've heard thus far, I've certainly been impressed with. As far as making sure that there is complete benefit, that we are organizing everyone who is impacted. I've expressed, and there's some agreement here. We need to have more public space, particularly green space. We're making full investments into our parks. It's an incredible part of the city. So what I can say is that the conversations have been very positive. I appreciate the leadership of Kevin Warren. He's done an outstanding job. Our team remains engaged. As far as the next steps or, what will be the ultimate motivation for my administration to sign off on this is, again, to make sure that there's complete benefit and public use. We're in conversations, of course, with the state as well, other stakeholders. There's a full operation here that's critical to landing this, and my job is to make sure that everyone stays engaged, and we're going to continue to do that.
What is being done to prevent an outbreak and to overcome vaccine hesitancy, which could be
Yeah, so again, thank you for that question. I'm encouraging all Chicagoans, if you do not know your status in terms of measles vaccine, you should check that. Most Chicagoans are vaccinated, particularly those, of course, who use the public space, public schools in particular. So that's encouraging, but we still have to make sure that our most vulnerable population is serviced. So we're encouraging everyone to get vaccinated. As far as what we're doing, our Chicago Department of Public Health has been on the ground in various spaces, particularly this one shelter that has had this outbreak. We're going literally floor to floor with partners, encouraging migrants to get vaccinated. There are some individuals, whether you're a migrant or not, people that have some hesitancy and some reticence around it. And so we're doing some real serious education. The number of migrants in particular who were unvaccinated, who are vaccinated now. That number has substantially grown in terms of those who have gotten shots in their arms, and that is in large part because of, again, community partners, Alderman Byron Sixto Lopez, walking literally floor to floor with our public health commissioner, Commissioner Ige. So there's still work to be done there. I think the last part to that is that the people who have been impacted, we are developing, and we have a quarantine plan. It's a 20-day quarantine, so this is not something that is going to go away immediately. So this quarantine is 21 days. But again, we're encouraging as many people in the city of Chicago to get vaccinated.
Last question.
Go ahead, we'll follow up.
Have you had conversations with the mayor of LA about how their referendum came back to this place is on? Because you got reports that the money projected wasn't anywhere near what's coming in, and do you have concerns that could be a similar situation here?
Well, first of all, the goal is to respond to the homelessness crisis. So that's thing one, right? And so this is why, the voters get to make a decision on how we're going to address homelessness. I made a commitment to addressing homelessness in the city of Chicago. We have 1 in 4 black students in particular who could experience homelessness during their career as a public school student. So this is something that I know the city of Chicago is committed to addressing. This ballot referendum, of course, is a decision that the voters get to make on how they want to fund addressing this crisis. I'm committed to funding it, $250 million just into homelessness alone. As far as our conversations with Los Angeles, absolutely. I've had conversations with the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, and there's a slightly different situation there, right? Because there's still some holdup. We learned some lessons from their decision, and that's how I believe we were able to prevail to at least allow it to remain on the ballot so that the question could be drawn. As far as to the last part of your question about the projections, look, there's an ordinance that will follow in the event that this particular referendum passes. That ordinance will ultimately establish that revenue stream, the outcomes, how we appropriate those dollars. So there's still time for that, so there's no need to panic at this point. The good news, though, is that there is an opportunity for us to address with a sustainable funding stream to address the crisis. Now, how much revenue is generated from that? Of course, there's some debate around that, but what there is not a debate around is whether or not it's a good idea to address homelessness, and I'm counting on the people of Chicago to make a commitment to my administration and our desire to address homelessness.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
What would happen? I know this is still early on for the Bears and Soldier Field. What would happen to Soldier Field? What would that look like if the Bears decided to build a new stadium? And let me follow up with that one. Would there be any impact to the taxpayers if this was to come to fruition? We'll make that a reality. Taxpayers have to contribute to this new stadium.
Well, again, the whole goal of these conversations is to elevate the benefit first, right? There's a benefit for the Bears of State of Chicago. They agree. There's a benefit to public use. That's what I've been pushing. The second thing, they agree. They also recognize that we have a fiduciary responsibility with private and public partnerships to ensure that there is an ultimate benefit as well as not the heavy burden that historically has been the case when it comes to these negotiations. Right now, we're headed in the right direction, I can say that. As far as to what the space is going to look like, there are some renderings that people will get a chance to see. What I've said all along is that as long as there is a public use, which includes the park district, that space has to be attached to a 365, 7 days a week operation. The goal is to build a better, stronger, safer, and equitable Chicago. We have an opportunity through public and private partnerships to do that. Now, I'm going to do everything in my power to represent fully the interests of the people of Chicago because that's what they elected me to do. But we're also encouraged that the Bears and the organization recognizes that my leadership in the city of Chicago is worth investing in. Thank you all very much. Thank you.